I asked Shah Rukh Khan, I said, am I taking Gauri's place? Because typically your wife would sit with you.
Such a loaded question.
And yeah.
Okay.
And he said, no, you are taking Kumar Mangalam Birla's place.
Earlier on, like a few thousand years ago, all the gods were female, and female are obviously superior to males, just like many of the insects and animal species.
Yeah.
It's just obvious. Like, I should try not to raise
But
my
it was
volume.
oppressed.
Yeah, it was so obvious
Yeah.
that men got fearful and they tried to sort of spread this new truth
Yes.
that, oh, it's men who are the leaders and whatnot.
Yes.
And then it flipped.
Yeah. So it told me that it may seem like just wall art, but it has its own vibrational level and it's definitely doing something to the energy of the house.
No, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there were dog weddings which were costing like hundreds and lakhs and crores, and the dog of the Maharaja of this state and the dog of the Maharaja of this state are getting married,
You're joking.
and there'll be dog procession. Oh God, you must read Xavier Morrow's book. I have it.
You're not joking. You're not joking. You're not joking.
I'm not joking. This was a
Okay.
time of eccentric spending. And the writer is so fearless because that's the way I've tried to conduct my career. I would ask anybody anything. I was never politically correct.
You shouldn't have said that because now I'm going to ask you anything.
He would sacrifice things for her. He would bring a car in for her. Like he did everything possible.
Then?
And started cheating on her now. And that's, I think, again, just the way men, that's their weakness. They get bored, right? Like you go to a jeweler, he will want to hold your hand. He'll gaze into you. Why don't you join us on Sunday? We're going to be having whiskeys. Don't you like whiskeys? You know, like they want to build an equation and they treat you like a lady. It's like that archetype doesn't exist because women have been educated now. They're working, they're independent. So you want to send me food for what? I'm trying to watch my diet. I cook very specific food. I don't need you to send me any food.
I love that. I
You
love
need
that.
soul food now. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. The I don't need
He's
food
a
thing.
caveman, basically.
Yeah.
I'll go hunt and I'll put something on the table and I'm like, I don't need that. And like, you know, all in fear and they're so scared to ask me things.
Yeah.
But you're just doing what you want to do. I said, yeah, but that's what makes it worth reading. Who wants to read about your toothpaste and your toothbrush?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And then I go to your Instagram and the first picture there's of this book.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God,
God.
that is the lady.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Absolutely. It's crazy that you remembered this book after a year.
And it was the frequency of it coming up in my intuition was more and more as this trip was materializing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to help you with something, you're supposed to help me with something.
Yeah.
Maybe
We're
together
supposed to share something.
we share something, help the planet with something,
Yeah.
liberate people's crap in their minds through these conversations. You should tell that to my wife. Tell that to my wife.
There for it.
Yeah, because I like right
Yeah.
nuts.
No, she shouldn't take it for granted. Very few people are constantly on a quest to grow. So that is a precious thing to have.
Yeah,
You know?
but it drives everyone mad though. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Zephyr Show. Today I'm in Mumbai and I'm with Sangeeta Wadhwani. And if I pronounce that wrong, she will correct it for us. I don't like to put people in boxes, so I'll let Sangeeta tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you like, what your passions are.
Right.
Feel free to not put yourself in a box either.
So really,
Yeah.
boxes scare me. I don't
Yeah.
believe in them.
Yeah.
And I think my whole journey was about trying many things in life, but as an artist, fundamentally, I've always been a sort of I resonate with the goddess Saraswati
Right.
because she was known to not be really a hardcore feminist, but she found the institutions created by society
Right.
not relevant to the plot. So,
Okay.
for example, her mythology said she represents all the arts, so music, painting, writing, you know, and she was a wandering spirit. She loved to roam the world.
Right.
And very interesting, there's only one temple dedicated to Brahma, who was the creator, who made Saraswati and fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. And there's only one temple in
Oh my
Pushkar
God.
in Rajasthan
Carry on.
where there's a story. The guide tells you the narrative that she was sitting at her wedding with Brahma, the creator,
Yeah.
and she gets bored with the whole ritual and she
Yeah.
gets up and she disappears. And the poor guy's got 5 heads and so many eyes, and he's just wondering what happened to her.
So are you
So
her?
I think so. Recently
Okay.
one of my friends who's a Marwari who's helping me to find suitable audiences for my art.
Right.
He said, "You are just such a Saraswati. You don't want to be in one place forever. You are restless when it comes to finding new equations. You want to
Yeah.
keep learning. You want to
Yeah.
keep growing." And I think, yeah, that kind of like you said, no, not to put people in boxes. But when I heard your story yesterday,
Yeah.
I feel you're a male
A male
counterpart.
Saraswati?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're a team.
You're a teen because you showed me you've also gone into modalities. You've been a life
Yeah.
coach, you've been in fitness,
Yeah.
you've been helping people, you've been
Yeah.
a musician. So I think also we're living in times we're very fortunate where we're not
True.
struggling for the basics like the older generation was. And like you said, sometimes there's a generation gap, but we've all found ways to balance our different passions along with the practical essence of work
Yeah.
that takes care of bills and
That's
everything.
nice.
But of course, for the longest time, for
Yeah.
me, content creation has been my life's epicenter.
Yeah.
I think that was my karmic destiny.
Before the term content creation was cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wouldn't call this content like 10 years ago.
I
This would
know.
just be books, right?
Yeah.
But because now there's such a proliferation of platforms that it
Yeah.
is now uniformly known as content.
So this is Mind the Gap.
Yes.
I really like the cover art, and I like the
Yeah.
cartoon at the front. Dude, get a life.
Yeah.
But I'm your Pati Parmeshwar.
Yeah.
That's
So
the-
this was meant to
yeah.
take a light-hearted take on what's happening between modern Indian educated women who are actually so now independent.
Right.
But the sad thing is they carry that blueprint that a man has to be better than us at every level. So he has to be financially better than us. He has to be emotionally strong. He has to be, indulge me, make me feel like a princess. But the pity is, and the reality
Yeah.
check is, that today the equation between men and women is more of friendship and
Yeah.
equals.
Yeah.
And it's been hard for the Indian woman to realize that he's not the god that a man was made out to be when you were a
Oh,
child.
that's what you mean by has to be, right?
Yeah, the
They
mothers
were made-
brainwashed you to thinking, Pati
Right.
Parmeshwar, you worship the man. But as you're growing and you're studying in the same institutions, working in the same offices,
Yeah.
very often the women have better solutions or better ideas. But we're still in that patriarchal trap that a man has to be richer, more
Yeah.
abundant, more this, more
Yeah.
that. And the result of that is that you're kind of always looking.
Yeah.
And there's no end to that.
Did you go back? That's very interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back spiritually, historically,
Yeah.
and read about where that came from?
It's a mindset that I think when men were given the education benefit that
Yeah.
women were not,
Yeah.
women were always playing a supporting role.
Yeah.
It's just the way society has shifted.
Yeah, so I was actually very curious about that. So I
Yeah.
read this book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, yeah, so he wrote like 3 volumes 30 years ago.
Mhm.
And the most recent volume 4, Awaken the Species, was written like a few years ago. So I read volume 4 first, and then I started with 1, 2, 3. And he says that earlier on, like a few thousand years ago, all the gods were female, and female are obviously superior to males, just
Oh.
like many of the insects and animal species.
Yeah.
It's just obvious. Like I should try not to raise
But
my
it was
volume.
oppressed.
Yeah, it was so obvious
Yeah.
that men got fearful
Mm.
and they tried to sort of spread this new truth
Yes,
that, oh, it's men who are the leaders and whatnot.
yes,
And then it flipped.
yeah.
I didn't live then,
But
so I
that's the
don't know.
same thing that Dan Brown's books explore.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, with the goddess archetype.
right.
And he actually shows you that, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary and all the feminine
Yeah.
entities, even of the
Yeah.
Christian faith, were
Yeah.
suppressed.
Right.
And they realized women had certain powers to manipulate even nature, but not in a way that would damage or hurt nature. So they understood how to work with the forces of nature,
Right.
but that was considered witchcraft.
I was just about to say.
When the patriarchy came into power, they were like, hey, wait a minute, we don't want them to have this control over nature power.
Right.
And then you had the Salem witch hunts and, during the Crusades or whatever. So
Okay.
I do feel there's been a witch hunt for men. It's a subtle witch hunt with the
Yeah.
dowry system saying that we are taking care of the bills, therefore you owe us this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think a woman like me, somewhere at heart, I just could not relate to that patriarchy. And so a lot of people say, oh, but you're never married. I said, look at the toxicity of that.
Yeah,
The whole setup is against women.
I know. I wouldn't want to be a
It
woman.
is so dictatorial. First, have a male child. If you've not had that male child, you're trouble, you're bad luck. If your husband passes away, you're bad luck. You have to be avoided.
This is
So it's this
India.
whole, yeah, it's this whole patriarchal
Wow.
mentality that is indicting you for just having the gender of a woman. I know women who of my generation who married, had an arranged marriage, could not deal with that patriarchal culture and quit on the marriage in 6 months and they'd be back.
Good for them.
So good for them. And I
Yeah.
think I've been blessed because I have beautiful home in Bombay, as you can see,
Yeah.
time and space, and not this, sort of pulling down factor. Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, which tends to happen in joint families where you have the mother-in-law and you really wonder, did I miss something by not getting into that zone? And I don't think so. I wouldn't have written
Oh my
so
God.
many books. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
worked for 6 brands. I wouldn't have traveled the world.
Yeah.
So I think for our times, even if we are in an equation,
Yeah.
we would not call it the standard. If you get married, it's
Yeah.
nice to consecrate the
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
I'm all for tradition.
Yeah.
I find there's a beauty, but we poisoned our own tradition.
Right.
Or then we need to kind of thread them and weed them and say, okay, we don't need this, we don't need this. We
Yeah.
need to update your traditions.
Right.
No?
I think some men, even more open-minded men today, such
Yeah.
as myself,
Yeah.
might agree with you that marriage is not the best thing. And I'm not just speaking out against my wife. She would say the same thing. And
Yeah.
we've reached that understanding
Yeah.
because we actually watched a podcast by Joe Rogan,
Uh-huh.
and he had a guest who he deals with psychology, and he was saying, it's funny, the reason why so many divorces happen nowadays,
Yeah.
and this is maybe taking it out of the Indian context of it, but just globally,
Yeah.
is because at teenage we're not sizing up the other person
Right.
to be a good provider or a good partner.
Yeah.
We're attracted to their perfume,
Ah.
which is and now that you think about it, that's every teenager.
Yeah.
They're attracted to the perfume and the clothes.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do whatsoever
Right.
with how you're going to live a life together. And then once the perfume wears off and you're like running around the house without perfume and
Yeah.
without a haircut
Yeah.
and without nice clothes,
Yeah.
you're like, what? You're looking at the other person and you're like,
I married her.
is that my life? Like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
that my life? Is that my wife?
Yes,
Like, what's
yes.
going on?
And I think you're speaking
Same for women. Yeah.
very accurately from a male perspective because
Yeah.
just yesterday I was scrolling Instagram and there was a relationship coach
Yeah.
whose name I think Matthew Hussey,
Okay.
who was saying this, and he said actually men are not wired to be monogamous.
Mm.
It's done to create family.
Yeah.
So the men have through time never found it easy to be monogamous. It's
Yeah.
always a struggle.
Yeah.
So you're letting yourself in for disappointment because they're just not programmed that way. We
Yeah.
produce one egg in a month. You guys are producing sperms every day. So like it's
I
a
didn't think
different
about it like that.
biology.
I never thought about it like
Yeah,
that.
it's a different biology, different level of physical desire between men and women. So it's interesting how I think through time we're getting to become more and more conscious of the nuances of long-term relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so when I wrote this, this was during the lockdown. It was a lockdown effort.
Yeah.
I interviewed all the power chicks I had met through my profession, which was
Okay.
executive editor at Hello Magazine. So I was
Yeah.
at all these fun parties and
Yeah.
fashion weeks and meeting these power corporate ladies. So one of them who speaks beautifully, her name is Devita Saraf, had taken a small business loan from her father, grown a massive luxury TV technology company, which has a valuation now exceeding 1,000 crores per annum,
Ooh.
employs lots of women. So
Okay.
she's sort of like a case study for this book.
Right.
So she was very enthusiastic because she
Yeah.
said, Sangeeta, you meet all these men
Yeah.
who've inherited, they haven't grown a business. They've simply taken it on from mama, papa.
Right.
The house comes from mama, papa, the business. And if you have a scene or a little romance with them, the attitude is, well, I'm such a catch. And she was so hilarious.
That's
She's like, then what am I? You're the catch, what am I?
right.
So, and her story is so much more powerful because she's grown something with the concept to execution
Yeah.
from scratch.
Right.
Similarly, with me, there was no history of anyone owning a newspaper company or a
Right.
magazine. So I went into the world with just raw talent.
Right.
And I wanted to make a place for myself. And that's why all these efforts came on the side, because within journalism, you have to follow a certain kind of commercial framework.
Yeah.
But these were my, other latent storytelling fashions. This is nonfiction. And I've not really done much with this in terms of promotion. We did a Zoom with Boman Irani, the
Okay.
very well known actor.
Yeah.
And he was my chief guest. And we just had a nice round of chats, and a lot of women came in.
Same.
And we had a nice tempestuous conversation.
Nice.
And Baman's view was interesting. He said, if you women are single, it's your fault. He said, the woman who married me saw me frying potato chips outside a cinema hall.
Right.
But she used to keep buying chips from me, and I asked her out, and that's how we fell in love and we got married.
Right.
But you women want the icing and the cherry, and you just want it all.
Such as?
Like a package deal. Like he needs to look great, he needs to be Harvard or Cambridge, he needs to. You will not marry the guy frying potato chips outside the theater.
Is that true? Would you?
That's what I just told you. Everybody wants one up more than what they are.
So there are many people like that.
Everybody. See, Asian
India?
culture, women are programmed to marry money.
Right.
And I'm not saying that in a proud way. The difference now is the women are also capable of making money.
Yeah.
The tragedy is they're still looking for that one up.
Mhm.
They want a man to be better and stronger in every aspect. And that makes it problematic, because if you've taken your level here,
Right.
for you to
Mm.
find 20x, it's not going to be easy. So you'll be single.
Yeah. Well, there's also a lot of talk about on the Western side of
Yeah.
like polarity coaches and relationship coaches and all these things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about how a woman, or rather female at her core,
Mm-hmm.
is a more vulnerable kind of energy
Right.
than a more male kind of energy. And I feel that makes sense because that's how you in more in tune with nature and so on.
So what's happening is they're only strengthening their masculine side. A lot of it.
Right. So however though,
Hmm.
could we say, let's say we flip this a little bit just to explore,
Hmm.
could we say that it might not necessarily be wrong or unsuitable or inappropriate or not in their best interest
Hmm.
for them to look for someone who they feel is better, because maybe that's just their vulnerable side going like, I want to protect her.
Yeah.
So then how do we balance, which I think could be a very real need.
So when you
So how do we
meet these-
balance that and the
It's
and
a
the-
true see, a lot of female coaches are trying to help women reorient themselves into their own feminine side.
right.
When you become this power boardroom power babe, yes, my friend loves fashion. A lot of them are indulging in very feminine clothes, but their basic nature intimidates men because they're
Mm.
calling the shots. They're in charge.
Right.
So a lot of the men who would be drawn to them if
Yeah.
they were not in those power positions
Right.
are sitting back and saying, wait a minute, she's a boss woman.
Oh.
Can I handle that edge? So their masculine has gone to this
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
Their feminine is actually heading downwards. You see?
Okay.
And I have also, like you said yesterday
Mhm.
about the stress hormone, cortisol,
Mhm.
it tends to harden you up over time because you're used to living on that
Oh,
edge.
yeah.
Right? So
It
if
is.
the man comes in being very sweet,
Yeah.
amicable, and non-challenging,
Yeah.
and an underachiever compared to who you are,
Yeah.
that chemistry is very hard to find.
Fine.
That
Right.
masculine feminine chemistry. So that's
Yeah.
what's happening not just in India. I think that's happening in China, Japan.
Yeah.
Like I told you yesterday, that in
Yeah.
Japanese there's a whole specimen of single women who refuse to get married in Japan
Right.
because they're like, that whole pig theory. Like why? When you're getting the hot dog, why do you want to buy the whole thing?
Right.
And sadly, I'm not happy to see this development because I'm a romantic at heart.
Okay.
I'm vulnerable. I'm very emotionally vulnerable. I've had a lot of younger men popping into my existence. And I think that's because I've not settled. So they don't get that settled energy from me. They get a adventurous energy from me. So, and they don't recognize that I may have so many years on them. But being
Sure.
a traditional society,
Mhm.
eventually there's a very funny movie called Rocky or Rani, okay, where she keeps telling this guy
Yeah.
that the families in India are the biggest role players and the biggest spoilers,
Okay.
right? And they always want to be the backstage control panel. So eventually, families get in the picture and everything goes for a toss. And they poison the young guy so much. Oh, she's done this to you. Or she's doing black magic. Or she's trying to get you. Or
I've
she's
heard
after
that.
your money.
I've
Yeah.
heard that one.
Yeah. But it's sad because actually, if you
Yeah.
think about it, an older
Yeah.
woman is better off with a younger man
Yeah.
who would be there if they decided to adopt a child, have a child, whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
If there's a child in the picture, the younger man will be around longer.
Right.
So it gives some sense of security to the woman that if tomorrow, if I pop it,
Yeah.
he's there for my child.
Yeah.
But the sad thing, the society is not allowing that shift to happen. They're coming in with so much judgment. And my horoscope says you're not going to have a regular scenario, either a much younger man or a much older. And I don't want to deal with a grandpa, archetype. I want a younger
Yeah,
archetype.
that's hilarious.
It is, but it is problematic.
Problematic.
Yeah,
Yes,
because then
sorry.
we're all stuck where we are.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like it could also be like maybe you have a more like a nurturing, like you said, how women in the olden days were more, I would say, just for lack of a better word, more spiritual,
Yeah.
would probably be more in tune with nature
Yes.
and more
Healing. And
more
then
healing, yes, and more nurturing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men, me included,
Mhm.
we look for a lot of us have what they call mommy issues
Mhm.
because our parents' generation
Mm.
was like severely impacted by this industrial revolution thing,
Yes.
survival, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so they became very hard.
Mm.
And so in our mothers, we didn't get the mother we were looking for.
Right.
And that's not my theory. That's a psychologist told me that. And so they said when boys don't get the mother they're looking for in their mother,
Right.
they look for a mother in their wife.
In the wife. Right.
So every time you look at a relationship where maybe the woman's earning a lot, the guy's not earning, he's
Yeah.
like laid back, he's like, I took 6 years off. And you're like, nothing wrong with taking 6 years off. But if you're wondering why,
Yeah.
it could possibly be because he just wants to chill. He wants a mother who
Mm.
was never there.
Mm.
And so, yeah, maybe it could be that.
So the thing is, if you've not experienced a nurturing energy while growing up,
Yeah.
how would you even know it exists?
Oh, you would know. You'd be drawn to it like flies to.
Maybe, yeah. If you
Bees-
saw it
bees
in
making
somebody,
honey.
yes, you would.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious to know whether. So I see you as someone who's a little balanced. You are in touch with your feminine
Yeah.
because of the work you're also doing. You're
Yeah.
guiding, you're healing,
Yeah.
and you're also very practical in your own way. You've set up a multi-level platform website.
Yeah.
You've experimented with being an entrepreneur. So you would come into the category of slightly more evolved
Yeah.
Indian men. Okay, let's face that. What
Thanks.
I find here are older men don't even want to know what your story is.
Yeah.
They just talk about themselves.
My dad does that.
There you go. So as soon as the horoscope says older man, I go into that kind of total sort of recoil because I've had that. I've dated older men,
Yeah.
and they just go on about themselves. And one guy was so funny. I was having a cappuccino.
Yeah.
I'd probably left a little milk mustache.
Yeah.
He just grabbed a tissue and saying, "That must never happen." And here I'm a power woman. I've traveled the world. I'm a literate person, and you don't talk to me like that must never happen. So I rejected him because I'm like, how am I going to deal with this
That's crazy.
patriarchy energy?
Wait,
I call it PE. That means this man suffers from patriarchal energy,
Okay.
and it's not gonna get to where. If you want a harmonious equation, you treat a woman, a new age woman who's
Yeah.
equipped with
Yeah.
education, exposure. And I've interviewed the Ambanis and you name it, the Maharajas, and you've seen my book, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to deal with someone bullying me.
Sure, of course.
It wouldn't even last a date. I was itching to leave, and then he dropped me home and he kept analyzing me because he was into some kind of spiritual modality where you just analyze a person. Oh, it was like, can I go now? Can I open this car door? And so I felt oppressed with older Indian men
Yeah.
because they'd not changed.
So let's just clarify that for a non-Indian audience because
Yeah.
this is on YouTube, so
Yeah.
different people.
Yeah,
So when you say they go on about themselves,
yeah,
so there's a few different things there. So when I say my dad,
yeah.
I mean that, and this is what me and my wife have analyzed
Mhm.
because we start to talk and analyze people, and because he had a very difficult childhood.
Uh-huh.
For him, it was not that he didn't just get his mom. I think he didn't even get his dad
Mm.
because his dad was in the Navy.
Oh,
And so for him, I think this is my opinion. We've not gone deep into it. it feels to me like he wants to be listened to.
Right.
So when I say he's going on about himself, he's going on about stories from his life. Are you referring to that? Or are you
No.
referring to talk about look at me how great I am,
Yes.
or something else?
Yes.
Okay.
That the energy where it's like, okay, you're a woman, you've probably not done much. You just need to look happy, decent. You
Right.
need to be a homemaker. So what do you have to talk about? You have nothing to talk about.
Oh.
It's all about my life. I
see.
got cheap this, I'm capable of this, I'm that.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that, then you're shortchanging your own date experience. You've learned nothing
Oh,
from
yeah.
the other person. You've not been receptive.
Yeah.
You've not been elegant enough to ask anything.
They might not
There's
even like
one,
you.
okay, there's one character who lives in my neighborhood
All right.
who walks his dogs in the morning.
All right.
His proposal had come for me. Thank God he couldn't make up his mind and I was busy with work. So it didn't culminate. But they were very wealthy. So within the community, they're like, oh, this is a great opportunity for your daughter. They have a hotel here, they have a hotel there, they have this, they have this, they have that. Thankfully, I didn't end up with him. I married my job, and he, with his superiority complex, ended up with a divorced woman who realized that he had very little capability to actually be successful. Everything was an inheritance. So he could live off interest if he wanted to. He
Right.
didn't need to exert himself. And he had the ego the size of a building, right? So she couldn't handle that. So she quit on him because she was better at making money, better at business. And then, unfortunately, I started a non-profit for the arts where we used to go from gallery to gallery, get people who are creative to sing, dance, write, share poems. It was a very nice movement reflecting something that happens in New York.
Oh.
This guy we were common friends. It was an American lady who started it called Janet Pine. So he was in one of her friends' circles.
Yeah.
She died of breast cancer. 2 years later, I had a morning dream that you should try and bring this back. This city needs it.
Right.
A non-profit. It's all about celebrating art.
Yeah.
So we had a meeting at the Sea Lounge. I asked him to help me build the community. So he shared all the contacts.
Yeah.
We started things. The moment he was not interested in the hard work, the moment the media came in the picture, started talking to me, saying, what is this all about?
Yeah.
He wanted to take it over completely. He said, you are not to send mails. You are not to send invitations. It's all about me from here onwards. You are not to talk to media. It's all about me.
That's not even trying to hide it. That's just like,
Suddenly the
Oh,
agenda was it's all about him.
okay.
And we tried to make it work, and everyone said, oh, what a romantic team. You guys look so good together and everything. But I was stressing over my job deadlines. And this guy would pick dates for these events when I was heading to the press, when he knew Sangeeta's not going to physically be around. So what he would do is you make the program, you get us the venue, don't show up. It's okay. It's me. I'm the god here. So eventually, you can see how toxic that could have been in a marriage. It wouldn't have worked, even though he's next door to me. Who cares about your hotels? Not like you're going to write them off to my name, right? So it would have been a very unhappy situation. So while working together, when I was unhappy, I would tell my father every day, how do people live with Indian men? How do people deal with this kind of egoistic? And then I found out he's some spectrum of autism, which means that when you have COVID, I have fever. Now he's trying to come back into my life again. I had COVID. I went to the doctor. I took a couple of B12s. I was very drained, very weak.
Yeah.
You know what he asked me? How much did you spend on the injection?
Because?
He didn't message me once to check, are you feeling better?
Oh, wow.
How much did you spend? How much money did you give the doctor for your injection? I said, $500. He said, do you know the actual vial is only for 30 rupees in the store? This is how despicable some of these guys are. They're just not programmed to be intuitive, sensitive, or think of another person's perspective. Today, if you had COVID as your neighbor, all he would do is say, I can send you food. I said, I have a maid who's cooking for me every day. Why do I need your food?
Right.
Ask me how I'm feeling, because I've come to that level of independence.
Right.
I need you emotionally now. I don't need you to take care of my day to day.
Right.
So that lack of evolution.
I read
It's
that
so
online.
chronic. Yeah.
I read that online. Like, women something, I think, express or something by sharing their emotions.
And especially now, today, I don't need you to buy me food. I do that shit, go square with you. That's not the level of relating women want, especially not working women. Yes, the ones who are total parasites, like, want to be like their mothers, just live off whatever your husband gives you, manage your life, whatever.
Yeah.
If it means compromising all your desires, do it, be good to him. That archetype doesn't exist because women have been educated now. They're working, they're
Yeah.
independent. So you want to send me food for what? A, I'm trying to watch my diet. I cook very specific food.
I
I
love
don't
that.
need you to send me any food.
I love that. I
You
love
need
that.
soul food now. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. I don't need
He's
food
a
thing.
caveman, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll go hunt and I'll put something on the table, and I'm like, I don't need that.
Yeah. No, the food thing is by the way a legit concern for all health conscious people.
Naturally.
Just not just from their mates.
Imagine me telling his staff how I like my salad and how I like.
Yeah.
He'll say she's a total flip out. So
Yeah.
he's still not understood why Sangeeta's not into me.
Right.
But he's pushed all the wrong buttons.
Have you told him?
How do you tell a man who, how can you ask me about the price of an injection? Be a little elegant in life. And you know what he used to do earlier? None of the women in Bombay want to be with him, despite the hotels and everything. There he just doesn't know how to be large hearted.
Maybe
He
you can
won't
teach
pamper
him.
you in any way. It'll be like, why did you spend 500 bucks getting well when you could have tried to get an injection into your own body and spend 30 rupees?
Yeah.
And nobody is that poor living on Carmichael Road. Then you should marry a slum dwelling woman who values that kind of saving. You know, it's a very cheap mindset.
No, totally.
And you
I
can't
understand.
tell a man repeatedly that your reputation is down because you don't know how to pamper women.
Mm.
Forget pamper, you don't even know how to be sensitive.
You can't tell him that.
How can I? He'll reject it.
Oh.
He's an old MCP.
Oh. Okay.
Nothing's ever wrong with an MCP.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that's so sad that this was put into people's heads.
I think I maybe told him that. I was like, in 3 days, you haven't messaged me saying, are you feeling better? And I don't care about the price of what I've taken as long as I'm on my feet and I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It still doesn't make sense to him
Right,
what
right.
women want. So I wrote this book, but the
Yeah.
pity is I need to print copies. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how to get it out there, but these men really need to read it.
Cool.
Yeah. See, like when the other woman or man is your phone. So a lot of relationships today are compromised because people are just on the phone.
Right.
Okay. A secret of seduction, the art of listening. And younger women are better, men are better listeners because the women in their lives are stronger and they have a point of view. The older men have grown up with women with no point of view. They don't read the news. They just get fat. They have the babies. They run the home. So those men are used to that feminine archetype.
Right.
Right? Which is not today's woman. So there's a mismatch. So the whole book, and this is about being casual, physical,
Yeah.
which is another big pressure that I find men now are so used to having that fun that they don't even think you qualify to be in their life unless you're willing to do all that. You have to sleep around, be easy. Then now what's happened is gone to another level, especially in the suburbs where you have the millennials. The girls don't want to be with one man. They want to sleep around with everybody.
Really?
Yeah. So one of the younger men who initially liked me till I was honest about my age, just fell out of a relationship and he's heartbroken because the woman didn't want to be loyal and she was living with him for 8 months.
Right.
She refused to be loyal. He went into her phone.
Oh, I met somebody like that as well.
Yeah.
One of my fitness clients.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say who, obviously. And he was like, "Yeah, my girlfriend didn't want to be committed, and so we just broke it off." I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, saying this guy was shattered.
That's
And
so
you see,
strange for me
he
to hear
has-
that coming from Singapore.
he
Because there's
has-
the opposite.
What is it like
It's
there?
like girls want to be committed,
Committed,
and
yeah.
guys don't.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm saying India is going through phenomenal shifts, which even
Right.
I've not fully comprehended. But what I try to do is base this on true stories. Talk to
Nice.
a lot of people, emailed a lot of people. And I
Right.
want this to be out there so that, this old school man has to evolve. If he doesn't, he's going to be a loner. All the guys on Bumble and Tinder over a certain age, over 40, their wives have left.
Right.
It's not been the man saying bye bye.
Mm.
All the guys I've met of that age group, the wives have walked away saying, we just don't want to live with you anymore.
That's
So
interesting.
yes, it's a huge statement. But
Right.
sadly, in India, we're not doing a lot of social surveys and, we don't tabulate, we don't find out what the numbers look like and who left whom.
Right. Right.
Had we done that kind of research at Tata Institute, maybe they need to conduct more relationship surveys.
Yeah.
You see what's going on with India,
Yes.
you know?
That would be useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one book.
Yeah.
You also have two other books.
Yeah, I have 4 in total. The first one is out of print. It's called Shakti in the City. Again, like you asked me about my journey, when I saw the rise of female power when I was in college, I I dedicated a series of short stories to women coming of age in the city.
Right.
And I call it Shakti in the city. And we have to keep this in mind. Bombay's women will have very different stories and journeys than women in the north of India. The north of India, the patriarchy is still very dominant.
Right.
Now, there's a plus side to it where they want to protect you, look after you, assist you, facilitate, be committed, be married, have children. All that's very much alive still in the north.
Right.
The downside of it is you can end up leaning on that man, building your entire story only around the home and the hearts. And I just recently I was at a conference where there was a friend of mine from Delhi whose husband started to cheat after I think 20 years of adoring her, where she was a rock star in the marriage. He would sacrifice things for her, he would bring the car in for her, like he did everything possible
Okay.
and started cheating on her now. And that's, I think, again, just the way men, that's their weakness. They get bored, right? But she couldn't handle it because it was coming too much into the picture. So she decided to quit for a while and just come to stay with her sibling in Mumbai.
Right.
And now she's struggling to get on her own two feet. So she comes from a lineage of dancers. So she had created her own therapy where dance mudras,
Yeah.
which can be done on your office desk and all, can
Yeah.
be used to facilitate wellness. And she was teaching that, but probably not in a serious business like way, right? She was probably doing small groups and everything.
Right.
But now she said, I need to scale up because I was used to a lifestyle, which at that time was funded by my spouse. But I need to move out. I can't live forever with a sibling who's also
course.
single, but happily single.
Yeah.
And I need to build my own existence financially. And she said, Sangeeta, in Delhi, they
Yeah.
just lump it, they just swallow. The man's infidelity, man is disrespectful, if he has a drinking
Oh.
issue, they lump it and they live with it because they've not worked on building themselves up
Yeah.
financially.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Right? So those, if I was living there, those stories would not have been these stories. So Shakti in the city, interestingly, came out from my years in college and the early years working and exploring Bombay as a journalist. And I had very deep insights because I was going through a lot of spiritual work at that time. For some reason, I was being guided to do Reiki courses. Then I had a Shaktipat Kundalini rising experience, all in my 20s. So that book has hugely, deeply philosophical insight into relating, instability, that family values, everything that was like looking like it was shifting to me. I'm very energetic and a young mind and an inquiring mind. So it's still one of my favorite books. Sadly, out of print because the publisher shut shop. So each copy is now being sold by second and third vendors. I don't see any of the royalty for 4,000 rupees on Amazon
What?
because it's out of print. It's considered rare and antiquated. It
Oh,
was
okay.
launched in 2000.
Oh, you mean like old versions, used
Like a
versions
rare
of those.
book,
Right,
like,
right.
limited edition rare. So any commodity that's rare, the prices appreciate. But none of the royalties are coming
Of
my way.
course, yeah.
They come to the middlemen.
Yeah. So people are reselling it.
Yes.
People who own the book once.
Yes, and you'll find second-hand edition valued at this and first-hand edition and good condition. And it amuses me how the book business works. And
Yeah.
one actress I had interviewed who was a very serious, like an art house actress,
Yeah.
Deepti Naval,
Okay.
she said, if I were you, I would have pitched it to someone to make a series, like a web series.
You still can.
Yeah, so they'll have to locate a copy because I probably gave most of mine away. I may have one somewhere
Did you have the script at least?
in an old laptop. So I have to
Oh,
buy
wow.
my own book back, get it retyped. I have one in the
Make sure you
house.
make a YouTube video about that. That's gonna be a
I will
great
get
story.
it retyped and reset and reprinted. And I
Yeah.
need to do that with mine. So this was published by the Amazon printing arm. They have
Okay.
a facet of their business that prints on demand.
Okay.
So you're not wasting copies.
That's
but it's
cool.
1,000 rupees a copy,
All right.
which is not feasible for me to distribute. I want to hand this to men that I've met.
Right.
in
I was
Bombay.
just thinking like you should have given that guy the manual.
They all need it. All the guys over 40 who grew up in a world where women had no voice, no will, no decision making power,
Yeah.
and then they just talk about themselves and they kill the relationship before it has a chance.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so let's just briefly touch on these two
Sure.
before we go into our other topics.
Sure.
So actually,
Yeah.
we're still on our first topic, which is who is Sangeeta, and it has taken a nice arc
But I think
What?
the books tell you a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
about
for
me,
sure.
right?
So,
Yeah.
so what's this one about?
So this was interesting. So I was quite taken in by the shifting values in our movie stories.
Okay.
Where,
Oh,
see, movies are sort of the spiritual barometer of a society. There was a time the hero could never go wrong. You could never kill the hero. There was a distinct vamp who did the sexy stuff, and there was a virtuous heroine who did the good stuff, right? So that kept people in a comfort zone.
right.
Everybody from the villagers to the urban, they all related to archetypes.
Ah,
But as I was seeing in college and then later that the vamp and the heroine are merging, the woman has to be sexy regardless. The wife and the girlfriend are always now hot and sexy, and they do all the item numbers, whether it's like Sheila, Shida ki Jawan. And
item
they have to be
numbers.
very sexual
Oh my
to
God.
make sense today because the men now are so programmed to look for that.
Can we just tell the audience what an item number is?
Okay,
Nobody
so
knows what that means outside India.
so as you probably have heard some very racy dance tracks that usually make a film come to life in terms of promotion and marketing. The woman, that the female lead is often made to perform these songs, and they're beautifully orchestrated. They're just brilliant. So, like even a song like Acorn, when he came to India and he sang, "You are my chamak challo." So these songs, because we live in the age of virality, tend to go viral around the world.
Right.
Recently Deepika Padukone's song in Pathan, that "Hame to loot liya milke ishq walon ne." So that went viral. I saw YouTubers doing reviews from everywhere around the world.
Right.
And they all assume that the woman is singing, whereas in Indian tradition, it's always a backup singer, and she just is kind of going with the song and
Lip-syncing,
lip
yeah.
syncing. But this item number becomes a big part of the formula to sell a movie.
So that's okay. So for an international audience, you've described what a dance number is.
Yes.
Or song and dance number.
Yeah.
What is this word item? What
So
does that mean?
it's a slang. It's a colloquial way to describe it because item, in like if for example a woman is hot, okay, and you have these sort of working class guys having a cup of tea in a cafe somewhere out,
Right.
and this hot woman is walking by,
Yeah.
they'll go phew, like they
Yeah.
blow a whistle and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, item,
Right.
So item basically means a hot chick.
Okay.
And when you do item number, it means a hot chick performing a really hot song,
Nice.
right? And
That's like
becomes-
every movie now.
so it's part of the success formula.
Yeah.
It's what draws you to the movie.
Right.
Whether it was Pathan,
Yeah.
whether it was Sheila Ki Jawani. They're so iconic now, all these songs. Recently they had Chaleya.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even central to the plot, but it's the
Yes, I noticed.
yeah, it's just eye candy.
Oh
But
my
what
God.
this book was trying to say is that means now that woman is not so virtuous, she has shades of grey. The hero is also 50 shades of grey because Shah Rukh Khan's first film, he was actually cast as a man throwing women over the terrace of a building. And he was the lead, but he was a psychotic lead.
What was that Bazigar?
Yeah, I think it was Bazigar, yeah.
Something.
Yeah, Bazigar, right.
Okay.
And he was a psychotic hero. He wasn't a healthy, normal man. He was obsessed. He was stalking the heroine and responsible for murder. So there's so many shades of gray in day-to-day life that sooner or later that has seeped into the scripts and the characters.
Right.
So when I wrote this, I was a journalist at L'Officiel magazine, and we were featuring a lot of personalities from the movies. But I didn't want to be superficial and just get the star narrative because the star narratives are everywhere. I always told the star, I want to see you how you work, how you relate to the women on the team, how are you treating the technicians. So I met Shah Rukh. So you know how you manifest things when you're
Yeah.
on a project, on a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
So I first wanted to get the lyricism back in my work. So I quit my job, not quit really, but I took a 3 week sabbatical. I joined a adult creative writing for professionals course in Scotland, in Edinburgh, where they don't know your history. So if you're producing mediocrity, they have no problem telling you that this is crap and you need to go back to your room and you need to work on it.
Right.
So we had a Greek. I was very fortunate. I wanted to, you can see my obsession with mythology. I wanted to build mythical archetypes, movie archetypes, character archetypes, and weave them in a narrative.
Right.
Very ambitious kind of way of working.
Right.
And we had a Greek teacher who was very attuned to god and goddess archetypes from Greece.
Okay.
So she made us do exercises where we have a conversation with a god or goddess. And the
Okay.
goddess that I chose was Ma Kali, who represents the era we're living in, the Kali Yuga. Okay.
Right.
I don't know if you've
Yes.
heard of
I
Makali.
have.
Yes.
We could go into that for hours, but
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
carry
So,
on.
so I wrote as a class assignment a conversation with Kali, and then we had to present it to class. And
Nice.
imagine you have Irish people, African, UK people, Brit people,
Yeah.
never heard of Makali. But the character was so vivid in the dialogue that they all got goosebumps. And I read it with that kind of force and power, like as though I had a latent Durga inside of me. So I read it with that really like powerful intonation.
Yeah.
And they freaked, and I think I taught my class in one assignment at least, not every assignment, but that one. So when I came back, I said, nobody's updated mythology for the times.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why my book hasn't reached the critical mass.
Yeah.
Again, you need marketing muscle for everything, and content now people find very hard to digest, very large.
Correct. Yeah.
But had this become a series, a web series, a movie, the filmmaker would have a picnic recreating a conversation with Kali, addressing today's existential questions from a young, energetic writer. And the writer is so fearless because that's the way I've tried to conduct my career. I would ask anybody anything. I was never politically correct.
You shouldn't have said that because now I'm gonna ask you anything.
Well, but back in the day, people were like really like, wow. Like I met Subhash Ghai and I had red streaks in my hair.
Okay.
And I was very blunt with him on many things about how he portrays women and everything. And he
Ah.
said, they're used to treating media like the kind of poor cousins, like they live far away, they don't have a lot of money. But I wasn't that kind of journalist, right? Like in India, unfortunately, it's a lot about demographic.
Yeah.
So when I was really brave and least interested in impressing the guy, he just said, you don't ask me anything. And if I ever make a film with a journalist, I'll make her like you. She will be having the red hair and she will be asking me many things which nobody has the courage to ask. They आजकल डर डर के मार के, because he's a powerful man, right?
Yeah.
वो journalists आते हैं, like, all in fear, and they're so scared to ask me things.
Yeah.
But you're just doing what you want to do. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, but that's what makes it worth reading. Who wants to read about your toothpaste and your toothbrush?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's how that. So a lot of people behind the scenes,
Yeah.
I wanted them to be part of the narrative.
Nice.
So because star narratives, like they're overexposed. Everyone knows. When I met Shah Rukh, it was at America had a Variety magazine awards night.
Yeah.
And I was at that time throwing 50 invitations in the bin every day. I couldn't keep up. But when I saw Variety magazine awards, I said, okay, this sounds nice. This was in some ballroom at a 7-star. And my date was late. I had a friend picking me up, and his mother had an exhibition. Because he was late, we entered the ballroom, and the lady in charge, when she said, "Oh, L'Officiel magazine," she said, "Listen, I think your seats are taken, but fortunately, we have a seat next to Shah Rukh in the front, right, the front table." And there was Kumar Mangalam Birla's name tag on my chair when I was pulling it back. Now you know who Birlas are, right?
Yes.
The oldest corporate industrialist.
Yes.
So apparently he had gone missing. He wasn't coming.
Okay.
So I'm pulling the chair, I'm sitting down,
Yeah.
and I asked Shah Rukh Khan, I said, am I taking Gauri's place?
Yeah.
Because typically your wife would sit with
Such
you.
a loaded question.
And yeah.
Okay.
And he said, no, you are taking Kumar Mangalam Birla's place.
Yeah.
And then we had a fun, like, ice breaking night. I handed my card, and what a man. I had chatted with him 9 years ago at Elle magazine. And at that time, he wanted to meet, and I said, I don't want to make it to Film City.
Yeah.
Too much time gets lost in coming there. Why don't we just do this? I need a quote from you. Let's do it over the phone.
Yeah.
He so could not get over that this writer doesn't want to even meet me, and she doesn't want to hang out with me at Film City.
Yeah.
He never forgot me.
Right.
And I had an accent, maybe a mild one, not a really, I don't have an Indian accent, I have like a nowhere accent, right? So he was very intrigued by that. He kept saying, I want to meet you. I want to meet you. You sound interesting. I want to meet you. So that night, when I gave him the card and he saw Sangeeta Wadhwani, he said, we spoke 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't want to meet me? I said, yeah.
Okay.
So, but then
Wow.
I said, Shah Rukh, I'm working on a novel about your industry.
Yeah.
And, if I ask you questions, I know all that's everywhere.
Right.
So I want you to show me how you work. So call me when you're doing a photo shoot.
Yeah.
I just want to observe you at work.
Right.
And he gave me the magic words and the numbers and every dates, everything. And I actually got to see him at work.
Right.
Amazing. He had Preeti Zinta on his back when he had a slip disc. And he
Right.
wasn't complaining. And it was the style team that was worried about him.
Right.
They're like, Shahrukh, like, dude, you have a slip disc. What are you doing with Preeti Zinta on your back? And that's the kind of insight I wanted into how he works. He's known to elevate people's energy wherever he goes.
Right.
And I think he's a hugely blessed man.
Definitely.
So, anyways, a lot of these anecdotes are part of Bollywood on the Bend. And I'm hoping one day it gets picked up for an OTT show because it has a lot of insights. It's very rich,
Right.
including going into Indian philosophy, Indian archetypes,
Yeah.
and the quest for feminine actualization. The
Yeah.
lead characters are women,
Yeah.
Ananya. So it's a love triangle. The writer, who is a reflection of me, comes in after 9/11, comes to Bombay, meets a film
Oh, there's
producer.
a story about
It's
a writer.
fiction.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So, writer coming from New
Right.
York after 9/11, scared to live in New York alone. Her parents tell her, go to India, you have family there. Parents are in Hong Kong. She comes to stay here with cousins and family, but she finds that archetype very oppressive, where the women are only programmed to marry,
Right.
and we're talking about the 90s. And she has a young cousin who's not allowed to take up a job because it won't look good on the family name. So, this chick bolts out. She goes and meets this film producer who she meets on the flight, tries to work her way into writing a movie, and then she meets this really eligible, cute guy called Siddharth, who is the young director training with the old fellow. The old fellow is modeled on Subhash guy who was flopping across the board. The young fellow says you need fresh blood because your formulas don't work anymore.
Right.
So the whole movie, it's called Bollywood on the Bend. It's telling the story of young blood coming into the business, old people being rejected by audiences for their formulas,
Yeah.
the strengthening and the sort of detoxing of patriarchy in cinema, and how also this young team gets now to write a very nouveau story, but they're leaning on the archetypes and they're redefining them.
Do you realize
Yeah.
you said the whole movie?
I hope people make it into a movie.
Yeah. As you said that, I got that same shiver down the spine feeling.
Oh,
We got
so
it.
then I'm dying for someone to pick it up. It's a great movie.
Probably will. Yeah.
When?
That's insane.
Hopefully in my lifetime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Bollywood on the
On the
Bench.
Bend with real appearances from a Ritik, and if they made this film like with a Farah Khan as a director, I can see her doing a great job.
Why don't you write to her?
They don't read the book. I've actually handed a copy to Karan Johar.
Yeah.
They pass it on to the assistants to read.
Why don't you give it to Farah?
I'll send it to her. I'll call her and I'll say I have an amazing. But thing is, they don't have time to really read a book.
Right.
They can read a synopsis. Then they'll give it to their teammates to read.
Right.
Then whether those teammates come back and actually read it.
So actually, I haven't told you this yet, but
Yeah.
because it didn't come up.
Yeah.
But my wife's cousin
Mm-hmm.
is actually a director.
Uh-huh.
I think he started as a producer. Now he's a director, and he worked with Shah Rukh Khan's company Red Chilies.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So maybe we could
Let's
hook you
try.
guys up with them.
Yeah, I'll try and do a tight synopsis.
He's
They
just
don't-
had a kid, so he's a
Yeah.
bit busy right now.
Okay.
But I'm sure he's not quitting the
If
business.
you're feeling the shivers, it means it's meant to be a movie. You
Yeah.
can imagine I'm talking to Kali. I'm
Yeah.
asking about commitment issues.
Yeah.
And Kali's solution is that, you see me killing things all the time. You need to declutter and you need to keep killing things, because if you go into things with the heart, your heart is your most precious body
Yeah.
part. You are constantly slicing it. So be dispassionate. Whatever you do, be dispassionate, be detached.
Yeah.
Now, all these archetypes are never spoken in cinema. It could even get me into trouble, like a Salman Rushdie. But Salman was dissing religion. I'm actually giving it a voice. I'm actually saying, give me solution.
But some people would also argue that Hinduism isn't really religion, it's spirituality.
It's a lot of spirituality,
Yeah.
but we do have icons, right? We do
True.
have a figureheads, and they've got their
True.
narratives.
Yeah.
And all we're doing is teasing that narrative a bit for our times.
Yeah.
We're saying, how does it work for our times?
Right.
And I would love to see this in an OTT show. I mean,
Yeah.
it would lend itself to many episodes.
Yeah. No,
And then we could
definitely.
create new seasons
I was
because
as you were talking, my guide popped into my head and it said multiple YouTube channels.
there you go.
But that's just me.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is the one that I got from you.
yeah,
Encounters with the
With the
Rich and
Rich and
Famous. It's also
Famous.
kind of heavy.
yes.
And
Because it's a pictorial book, it's
Yeah.
very rich and illustrated.
Yeah.
And this kind of encapsulates 20 years of lifestyle and celebrity journalism, where you can see the range of people. There's M.F. Hussain, an iconic artist who's no more.
Yeah.
There's Aishwarya, there's Mr. Bachchan, there's Princess Diya Kumari.
Yeah.
So Princess Diya, the first time we met her, she was in a kurta, which I've captured all those images. She just met us like a regular woman in charge with a lot of responsibilities, with a fax machine, and it was old school and lovely.
Yeah.
But as we started featuring royal families, the ladies especially ended up working out. They lost weight, they got into beautiful designer saris, and they
Nice.
realized that we represent a legacy. So Hello was responsible to bring these families back into the forefront, because the Indira Gandhi regime actually tried to cut them out of the picture completely. They took
Because?
away all the privileged money that you see, earlier they were part of the tax paying structure.
No
So
idea.
they had privy purses from the government to
Okay.
maintain the monuments, the palaces, the
Oh.
festivals, and they were patrons, right? They
Right.
were sustaining artisans and all that. So there was a structure where the government, the newly formed republic, had privileged purses for the royal families to sustain what they had. But
Okay.
Indira Gandhi was a socialist. And
Okay.
there were crazy things that some of the Maharajas were doing, which didn't make sense when India was completely bled by the British colonial time.
Yeah.
So she said, now each one has to sustain one more, and I want an egalitarian world. I don't want this crap. Where they had pigeon-sized diamonds, and I mean, there were dog weddings which were costing like hundreds and lakhs and crores. And the dog of the Maharaja of this state and the dog of the Maharaja of this state are getting married,
You're
and
joking.
there'll be dog procession. Oh God, you must read Xavier Morrow's book. I have it.
You're not joking.
I'm not joking. This was a
Okay.
time of eccentric spending.
Right. Okay.
One Maharaja fell in love with a dancing girl in Spain who was broke, brought her back, made her a white Maharani, and built her something that looked like the Palace of Versailles
I can see myself doing that.
for a woman you love.
Yeah.
So, and she was broke. Her family was bankrupt. They literally sold her to this Moor. They looked at them, all black men, as Moors. But he was a Sardar Maharaja from Kapurthala. So all these stories. So we were able to get into that whole historic period. And I have to tell you, it was super, super engaging, because like I told you, I'm a romantic. Those days, lovers would hide themselves into, like, suffocate themselves to protect a lover's reputation, hide in these little like boxes and castanets. And
Yeah.
even if they were being gunned down through the box, they wouldn't make a sound, because the Maharani's reputation is important. So there were all these like chivalry,
Really?
yeah, stories of chivalry,
What?
of immense love.
This,
And there's a YouTube.
we need to do more videos.
Yeah.
This is one video is too short.
Yeah. Or the men who, if they were having an affair with a royal princess or a queen,
Yeah.
they would sacrifice their lives to keep her going, to keep her reputation.
Wow.
So that was the age of chivalry. So when we used to visit all these palaces, I used to go into my own like dream zone. I used to say, oh, I can imagine this happening here and that happening there. And then it's still alive in Rajasthan. There's still a sense of chivalry.
Mhm.
It's a sweetness. It's not that toxic patriarchy. Like you go to a jeweler, he will want to hold your hand, he'll gaze at you. Why don't you join us on Sunday? We're going to be having whiskeys. Don't you like whiskeys? Like they want to build an equation and they treat you like a lady. It's like being
when sorry, when did that happen?
recently I've been going to the Jaipur Lit Fest.
Okay.
So I always end up visiting my jeweler friends there. I used to buy these little Jaipur. I still have a Jaipur emerald.
Wait, like random jewelers or jewelers?
No,
who
you build
know?
an equation like Montepallo
Oh,
jewelers and all.
okay.
They get to know you over time.
Okay.
And they'll always say chai lo, thanda lo,
Okay.
garam lo, like,
Alright,
be
yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And they really make you feel like you have a gender. What tends to happen here in the city is you could be any gender. From morning to night, you don't remember. I've had guys opening doors for me and I go to culture shock. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, you're a man, you will open a door for me. Because it's not part of Bombay life.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Everyone's going Dutch. Everyone's expecting a fling on the first date. There is no perseverance, there's no poetry, there's no, there's a beautiful quote. I remember Neetu Singh, Ranbir Kapoor's mother, who was also
Okay.
an actress, right?
Yeah.
She said, आजकल वो ये ज़माने में ना वो ठहराव नहीं है. ठहराव is a beautiful Hindi word that means cultivating things slowly. Tehro means to wait.
Yeah.
So patience. So she's like, you're not in that age of perseverance and patience and idealism. You should watch the Gayatri Devi
Yeah.
interview with Simi Garewal on YouTube. There's an unabridged one
Okay.
where she's because her life encompassed the change. Right?
Okay.
She went from being a princess of Baroda,
Yeah.
third wife of Maharaja Jai Singh of
Yeah.
Jaipur.
Mm.
And the BBC at that time, they were very like, let's make a scandal out of the fact that she's the third woman. So they used to come down to do interviews And she was named by Vogue UK as one among the 10 most beautiful women in the world. So
Right.
the media was always hounding Gayatri Devi for interviews. So they told her, but in our part of the world, the third woman is the mistress. She's not a wife. And isn't that intolerable? Isn't that a scandal? So she would say in India, we respect women so much that if we love a woman, we'll marry her, whether she's first, second, or third. But we give her the status of a wife and a queen. They
Right.
call her Maharani, Gayatri Devi. They didn't just call her Rao Rani. Rao Rani is when you're just a whore who's mixed your genes with the royal genes and then you produce bastard children. She was called Maharani Gayatri Devi, and lovely books about her as well.
That's nice.
And she was progressive, right? So she insisted that there should be a girls' school. So she started the MSG Girls' School in her name. She wanted women to come up, not wear the parda. There was a tradition after the Muslims left to have women in parda. She said, that's not us. We're not going to be like that. She used to smoke. She used to go hunt tigers. At the age of 12, she shot her first tiger. But that was a royal pastime to go into the forest and shoot. But, then when I met another Maharaja of Kishangarh, he said we always had eco sensitivity. We didn't need it from PETA and all these world bodies. If we knew we shot so many animals for our hunt, we would let the forest regenerate the populations. During mating season, no hunting. Let the animals repopulate. Then you take your hunts. And there also they would keep a head count of the trees, of the flora and the fauna. So I learned it was the richest time of my journalism career when I was at Hello, because people are so well endowed with values. The further back in time you go, you start seeing the values that drove them. It's values where we've deteriorated.
Interesting.
It's values now which have been confused. And it just saddens me. We've thrown love in the bucket. It's all about lust. And sometimes it even disgusts me, the way people behave. Because you're a writer, you're looking for the story. Where is the bloody story? People jumping each other's bones is what the monkeys are doing. So how are you evolving or are you devolving? Are you going back in evolution?
Yeah, but I think to be fair, like or to be more neutral, if we look at it from another perspective,
Yeah.
We might also be losing these values.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should lose the good ones, but I'm
Yeah.
saying like maybe people nowadays, because some of us are becoming more conscious, we want to question like everything.
Yeah.
Maybe to the point where overthinking sometimes.
Right.
So maybe a balance would be.
I think what works for people at a soul level needs to be prioritized. If you're just consuming people, consuming products, consuming food, then you've just lived at the level of the body. You've not cultivated anything deeper, truer, more beautiful. If you come into Urdu poems, you see movies like Umrao Jan or even Jodha Akbar, you'll see that, love used to be stirred like a nice, slow cooking, slow eating affair. And that's when it touches your soul. If you're just at the, I'm telling you, just at the five senses, you're not evolving. And the tragedy is suburban Bombay has become a jungle of lust. Where the girls just literally, I was chatting with a journalist friend of mine who's got friends in that millennial age group. You're literally like they're consuming men, like monsters. You can't, how are you commoditizing people, reducing them to body parts? I mean, give me a break. So I'm a little like now not so in sync with what I see here. And I think there's more depth outside India. Outside Bombay, not Delhi and all, they're still a little more traditional. But definitely this suburban jungle, I'm not so enamored by it.
Okay.
Sobo still has an older generation, right? So their Sobo still will have that respect. And
What's Sobo?
South Bombay.
Oh, South, yeah.
But then again, it's like a senior citizens on conclave within the city.
That's
Everyone's much older.
Much older.
So it's not even very exciting.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that was Encounters with the Rich and Famous.
But then here you'll have Bachchan's story and you'll have like Hema Malini and how, as a Manglik lady, she wears a Mars red stone. Manglik women tend to be the third party in a lot of equations, right? So she was cast as the second wife, which in our modern world is not given its due recognition. So she had built up a world which was filled with the arts. Every evening they light diyas in the house. They detox the atmosphere. She was raising these two girls as almost like single. She had a partner, but he was not in the picture. She had the respect of a wife because he married her. He changed his religion, married her. So that way, Hema Malini was a bit lucky. But there was a despondency because every woman wants the husband to be in her life, in her home.
Yeah.
But then she flipped it around when we talked to her. And she said, but then today I can have a political meeting. I'm opening a dance school. I travel. I do my ballets. And I'm not running around a man. And I have to see the positive in that.
Of course.
Imagine for her generation, that's a huge evolution,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And then I asked him, I said, but as a second woman in a triangle, did you ever feel hurt when he was acting with other girls and, with a wife? And so he said he was always a gentleman. He would never do things to hurt. He was proper, like he's a, what you call a Jat. Jat Punjabi man, very romantic, all heart. So she said he was always a gentleman. Now, where do you see that kind of gentleman code? I even wrote a story in Hello saying, gentlemen have died.
I see so many. You know what? As you're saying that, I'm having so many alarm bells go off,
Yeah.
and I think my generation would, because
Are you 30 something? Or?
36
Yeah. Okay.
this October.
Yeah.
So that there would be many men and women in many cultures and many countries would be like, I don't care how gentlemanly he is. It's a one wife deal or no deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're not
No,
allowed
but
to
she
go
didn't
sleep
really,
around.
unfortunately, she
Whatever.
had really fallen for the guy.
Right.
Her mom tried to get a hitch to a single actor called Jitendra.
Yes.
But I think Jitendra was going to marry a Sindhi woman called Shobha.
Right.
So Shobha orchestrated to get Jitendra, to get Dharmendra to the wedding that was planned between Jitendra and Hema Malini. Obviously, mother told her, you want a man to yourself, why would you want to share a man?
Yeah.
And Dharmendra came disrupted and said, I'll change my religion and marry you. So it wasn't her first choice.
Okay, okay.
Sometimes you're hopelessly in love or you're genuine soulmates.
it's just
So I don't
sometimes.
think at a practical level she always knew it's a compromise.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Right.
But don't forget, in the movies, you're anyway in an alternative reality. You're shooting so many intimate scenes, you're so much with that person
Yeah.
that you think, you know what? I really can't love anyone else. I love this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
No, that's
tough.
definitely possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And you are maybe meant to be together, but in that weird way.
Yeah.
The Mangal star does, the Mars in a woman's horoscope, it creates a lot of these issues. Rekha's heavily, even more Manglik than Hema Malini. She's always been the third woman and not even acknowledged as a wife. And there's a lot of
Interesting.
sadness. You look at Rekha's pictures,
Yeah.
no matter how well maintained she is, there is that vacuum because she never got the respect of a wife, which in her generation was everything.
Right.
You know, she came for a Hello Hall of Fame Awards. Sri Devi had recently committed suicide or passed on. We don't know what happened with Sri Devi. But Sri Devi was again a second wife. He divorced his first wife and married Sri Devi, Bonnie Kapoor. So she said it with so much feeling. She said, Sri Devi Bonnie Kapoor is no longer with us. So you could see the importance of having the name of a male spouse because Rekha never got that.
Right.
But she still has the love of the master. She's
Yeah.
immortal. She's just on Vogue Arabia cover.
Now that
So
you,
she's
yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, it kind of slipped my mind, but even my dad's mom, married twice, and my dad's dad married twice.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, after they were married to each other, and we were friends with everyone.
Okay.
So yesterday I just met so Farad that I was telling you,
Yeah.
the journalist. His mom was my dad's second wife.
That's really confusing.
My dad's dad.
Right. So your
Yeah.
grandfather's
Married,
second wife.
yeah, second wife, and so and we're still friends, and we had a nice chat.
Well, so look at Alec Padamsi. Yeah,
Yeah.
he married 3 women.
Right.
And all the women are friends and all the kids are friends. That you
Not-
have big family bashes.
That's crazy though.
That is absolutely crazy. He did it. Because he's
At the same
Muslim.
time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Padamsi is a Muslim, so he's allowed to do it. And they're all strong women.
Yeah.
There's Pearl Padamsi, the first wife, whose
Yeah.
child Rail Padamsi is very big on NGOs and theatre.
Yeah.
And there was Sharon Prabhakar, who was the
Yeah.
third woman, who was this hot, item
Yeah.
singing on stage.
Right. So actually, do you follow Teal Swan?
No.
So she's this spiritual leader. I mean, there's a thought leader online, and she released a video on polygamy.
Uh-huh.
And actually, there are a lot of clues and signs and stories about like previous generations,
Uh-huh.
like not this far recent, but way back, where and I've been having this more and more, and me and my wife we were discussing because there was this guy in the friend circle who tried to touch her and
Oh.
then denied that he tried to touch her. Like
Yeah.
I'm all for everyone touching each other
Right.
if you agree that that's what we're doing.
It's consensual.
Yeah, and also just be honest. Like,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if it's not consensual, just
Yeah.
like say like, oh man, sorry, your wife was too beautiful.
Yeah.
I prefer that rather than oh no, I didn't do anything.
Right.
So we were having these discussions, and I told her maybe there's nothing wrong with what he did. He's
Mhm.
just embarrassed because, and just like Teal Swan was saying, actually all humans just desire connection.
Hmm.
So maybe marriage is a sham. Like this whole like
Yeah.
male female.
Yeah.
Not that it's not valid that the energies need to mix and blend and blah blah, but maybe it's just a modern day construct.
Hmm.
But there's no actual answer to that because
Yeah.
some species in nature they do just like one partner.
But you're saying modern day construct.
Yeah.
I feel it's a modern day deconstruct. The modern
Yeah,
world
that
is just
too.
tearing it apart.
That too, yeah, because
Yeah.
we're going back towards spirituality.
Yes, and not
Ah,
only
so-
that, there's what Ener Hussain, the artist, told me.
Yeah.
He said it's redundant. Today, the woman doesn't need a man for economic power.
Yeah.
Women are widely available. Man doesn't need a woman for
Yeah.
sex, right? So, what used to keep marriages solid, rock
Yeah,
solid,
yeah.
that foundation is no longer there.
Yeah.
So, the compulsion that I have to attach to this one person for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
till death do us part,
Yeah.
that foundation isn't there to
Yeah.
keep it going.
That's
You
true.
may be drawn to someone who's more evolved as along with your journey of evolution.
Yeah.
Your husband may not be evolving. You will drift apart. It's going to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you can't even sit on judgment. Earlier, there was a lot of judgment.
Correct.
People are so de facto about it. Like, okay, we grew apart.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
And it's honest, you know?
True. Yeah. I'm happy to say that me and my wife were at that state where we talk about everything openly.
Yeah.
We even ask the question, actually, why are we together every week?
Yeah.
Not in an angry way.
Yeah.
Just exploring.
Yeah. Just exploring.
So yeah.
For kids, yes, I can see that. You
Yeah.
need to build a nest for the children.
Correct.
So there is a nice function to marriage because that's it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's very hard to know who you will be tomorrow, who he will be tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you're able to grow together, you're in a happy
Yeah.
situation.
Correct.
If only one person, and that's the problem with these older Indian men, they're not willing to change.
To grow, yeah.
So it looks toxic from the outlook.
It's very arrogant.
Yeah,
Okay, so
and it's
before-
toxic.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, you and I, with our personalities, we can go on chatting for
Yeah.
days. But before we end,
Yeah.
or at least this episode, I wanna let's just talk about something else as well.
Yeah.
That was a good lunch break.
Yes.
Thanks for the
Sindhi
home
curry.
cooked meal.
Yeah.
Sindhi
Nothing
curry.
like home cooked food.
Yeah, it's comforting and comfortable.
And easy on the belly.
Yeah. So I wanted to chat a little bit about how we met and how this meeting was sort of meant to be. And maybe from there we can talk a little bit about spirituality and some of the new work you've been doing and so on. So actually what happened was I visited Crossword. I know you heard this a few times,
Yeah.
but for the audience now.
Yeah.
So I visited this really nice bookstore called Crosswords, which I've been visiting since I was a kid. So I love to read. And over the last 2-3 years, my career was taking a bit of a transition. And so I was walking there after lunch at Plate and Pint with a fitness client who I'd previously only met online when I coached him. And he's a Parsi guy. And so as we were walking, we were discussing our careers because even he's quitting like a long-term shipping career to now open his own organic farming aggregator website,
Okay.
which links farmers who organically farm
Uh-huh.
to consumers, maybe such as yourself,
Right.
out here in India.
Yeah.
And so,
Big
yeah.
movement. now.
Yeah. And so as we're walking through the shelves, we inevitably ended up at the showbiz shelf because
Yeah.
I'm always looking at the music stuff. And then we see your book right up there.
Yeah.
And as I see your book, I have this imagination of this lady called Chelsea,
Uh-huh.
who I saw on Netflix, who, just like you, knows a lot of famous people, has met a lot of them, had a show come out where she's sitting at a round table with the singer from Imagine Dragons, Wiz Khalifa, I believe Mary J. Blige or another African American singer, and she's the only musician artist there, but she's an artist in her own right.
Mhm.
And as they're going around the table talking about each person, they come to her, and so she was like, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, because they were all opening up about their insecurities about work.
Mm.
And she was like, I don't even know who I am. I just know I like to be with people. I like to talk about entertainment. So here I am, and this is my show, but I actually don't know what it's called or who I am. Like, there's no box, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, I'm realizing, oh my God, that is me in the Singapore music scene. Because they can't figure out, like, is this guy a drummer or a singer or he produces? Because I do all of it. And I'm not very cliquish. I like to make friends with everyone.
Right.
And so I'm remembering your book more and more before this India trip happens. And I'm thinking back to that crossword. And I was actually thinking I'm going to go back and buy it because I want to read about what she did and how she did it. And I'm just having more and more thoughts. And then on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, the day you were there as well, I was having this thought in the morning, oh yeah, crosswords, I got to go there later. And so we go to Just Lok Hospital for my dad to see his eyes. To talk to a doctor about a potential stroke, which he doesn't know happened.
Okay.
Because there are parts of your brain where you could get a mini stroke where you don't know, because maybe that part of the brain just controls your eyes.
Yeah.
Then he has eye problems. So he suggests eating at the Chinese place next to, like Kem's Corner. And I was like, no, let's go to this other place I know. And so I walk in, and then I sit down with him at the same table I sat with my client Nansha the previous year. And we look over the table where you're sitting there with Chaitali. And I was like, first I could only see Chaitali's face, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, she's doing a reading for you. After a while, I saw you explaining, and I saw the head movements and the hand motions, and I was like, and then I kind of saw your aura, and then I was like, this is a seriously witchy person. I need to talk to her.
But what do you see in a witchy aura?
It I don't know. I can instantly. It was a feeling. There's a feeling. It was a
So it wasn't something you see. It was something you sense.
I do see people's auras.
Yeah.
But that day I sensed you, and I was like, I have to talk to this lady. I don't know why. And so I went over and talked to you.
Yeah.
And then you gave me your card. And I still don't know that you're the author, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's just like some Indian lady who, encounters with a Richard famous. Because I wouldn't pay attention to the author's name. And then you pass me your card, and I go home, and it's a busy day. We're running around trains and buses and cars and all sorts of stuff. So I was like, okay, what's the lowest barrier to entry here? And I see your Instagram. So I was like, okay, Instagram. So go to her Instagram. And then I go to your Instagram, and the first picture there's of this book. And I was like, oh my God, that is the lady.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Absolutely. It's crazy that you remembered this book after a year.
And it was the frequency of it coming up in my intuition was more and more as this trip was materializing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to help you with something, you're supposed to help me with something.
Yes.
Maybe
We're
together
supposed to share something.
we share something, help the planet with something, liberate people's crap in their minds through these conversations.
Yes.
But then also we got talking about the tarot, and thanks for the reading you did.
Welcome.
And so maybe we can talk a little bit about it's obvious to anyone who knows anything about spirituality when they look at all this and your face and blah 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 that you're into spirituality. But do you want to share a little bit about your spiritual journey? Without a 30-minute description.
I'll try to be quick. So basically, I was inducted into a Reiki 1 class after my cousin Vishal, who's now a well-known musician, had Reiki in his house. He had a Reiki class. And we stumbled upon it. I was intrigued. I said, what are all these people doing? Right. So I met the master. I enrolled at 25, at the age of 25. And that journey sparked a greater engagement because I kept meeting people from different spiritual walks of life. And I started exploring all the different pathways that were opening up, including going through Kundalini Arise Shaktipat experience at 27. And I think that worked very well with a career like writing because in writing, you have a moral responsibility to make the society reflect on change for the better. That's the way I see broadly, And you're also supporting other lives and journeys by saying this person's achieved this person's achieved that. So it was a spiritual career intrinsically and not a profit driven career. The fact that it became profit driven happened on its own. That was again the universe doing its own number where the .com scene arrived and then the salaries multiplied. But so this all I would credit to the awakening of the Kundalini, which was the Shaktipat experience, which I had in my 20s. And I started taking my art a little more seriously because the universe planted me in the Times of India building, which was just a walk away from the GK School of Art, which is Bombay's most renowned, iconic art institution. So I told my editor, if you don't mind, for a few months, I will leave a bit early because I have class. And I started there fidgeting with pastels and oils and different mediums. And that's when I was losing my dad, he had a stroke, he was bedridden. I had to spend more time at home. Then I started buying into this, and I even called a teacher home from JJ School of Art. And I said, I want to do a series on gods and goddesses. And I also think, Zephyr, that when I was a kid, my mother wanted us to read Amachitra Katha stories.
Oh, I read those.
You know those, right?
Yeah.
So those are the stories that tell you about the mythology of India. All the stories of Shiva, Krishna, so on and so forth, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. So those images were so deeply ingrained somewhere in my subconscious mind that when I started to put brush to canvas, they were the first entities that appeared.
Right.
So Krishna and all his beauty, Shiva and his meditative tranquility, then the combination of the two, the Shiva Shakti. And a
Right.
lot of people come home now because these works have been up on the wall for 10 years almost.
Yeah.
When they come home, even if they're calling entities or they're playing with darker energies, they are not able to connect with them. I had this experience recently,
Yeah.
a very ambitious friend who believed in fire meditation, fire manifestation, and Aryan friend who has materialized and manifested an incredible career journey. And we were home from a night out, and he kept throwing his diamonds on the table and here and there. And then he said, you know what? There is this entity that is making fun of me right now. And it's a very playful entity. And I can manifest it and show it to you in my eyes. But the more he spent time trying to get it into his eyes, then his eyes become demonic, which we've seen in photographs. But he wasn't able to call it in my house. He said,
Oh.
it's just your house is deflecting this energy.
Right.
So it told me that it may seem like just wall art, but it
Yeah.
has its own vibrational level and it's definitely doing something to the energy of the house.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, there are the sugars again.
See?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of truth in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And maybe the spirit guides are saying, yes, there is a lot of blessing. And I do feel protected by my own art practice. And a lot of it has spiritual meaning. I even experimented with non-figurative works during the lockdown, which became about the planet. So do you
Right.
want me to hold up a few?
You could hold up a few, or I could just
Pause.
I could just take the camera and we
Yeah.
could talk as we walk.
I'll need to spread them out because they're all over here on the
You
mic.
might, yeah.
And even like you're seeing the Om over here. You can show this on
This
camera.
one.
Yeah.
I love this one.
Yeah. This again it's called the Himalayas. So you see a combination of snow, sunshine,
Yeah.
and then the Om, when you change the angle of the work,
Yeah.
becomes a third eye and a Trishul, which is Shiva's method.
Wow.
If I just twist it around, it becomes a third eye. So a lot of these works are imbued with very cosmic and very spiritual vibration.
Amazing.
And that's why when you asked about the selling part, it's never been crystallized in my mind whether I want to sell. No, do I not want? This has been part of the collective energy here for a long time.
Right.
But sure, people said, we really like this. Can you make us one? I will make you one.
Insane.
You know, the Shiva Shakti.
Yeah. And so are you also gonna go further into like the tarot readings or card readings or
Yeah. So the tarot was like you saw in my house. I've got lots of different things,
lots
right?
of decks, yeah.
So thanks to my spiritual experiences, wherever I've traveled, I've tended to be drawn to tarot a lot. And when I was at Times of India, I would spend my evenings with the tarot reader at the Oxford bookstore. And I had this deep fascination for this art of divination. And given how uncertain the times we are living in, I think having a medium to see where you're heading, to get that guidance, is very, very empowering.
Yeah.
So recently, I've been enrolling in a lot of courses.
Okay.
Some of the decks come with the booklets that explain, the meaning of the card. But I want to start to internalize it. So I'm doing a diploma, then I'm doing a mastery with an Indian teacher and a UK based teacher.
Wow, that's
And
insane.
let's see where this journey goes. And then, of course, my work is I've always been listening to human stories. So this will be taking it to the common man, right? Earlier it was Richard Famous, but now I'll be helping the everyday person
Yeah.
share stories and also get guiding.
That's amazing.
And like, I don't know how the session felt for you. How did it feel?
Yeah, I mean it was good, very reflective.
Yeah.
Made me think about what I'm doing, not doing, some skeletons in my closet.
Right. Like
Um,
we all have those shake, rattle, and roll skeletons.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
I've
was,
adopted weird methods of manifesting dreams, like I told you, and it's always interpretation. Some people will say that's a skeleton in her closet, but to me, it was just a clean, clear intent that I put in the universe. Like meeting Shah Rukh Khan at the Variety Awards, I just came back from Scotland and I said, "How do I manifest Shah Rukh Khan? It's going to be such a task."
right,
And the universe placed me on a chair right next to Shah Rukh.
right,
Similarly, this was such an ambitious project. I was like, how am I going to manifest 25 lakh rupees to go into print with a coffee table book?
right,
But the universe put just the right person in front of me. And he said, it's not a big deal. I'll take care of it. You focus on the book.
right.
Similarly, with the Regis, they just said, we love the concept. Please go ahead and launch it
Yeah,
at the hotel. So I do feel if you come from a space of honest desire,
yeah.
and you never had malice and you live with a relatively clean, pure spirit, then the spirit guides always help you.
Yeah, I do feel that.
You would know that.
Yeah, I actually had that happen with a song where I first released a song which was trying to copy, like, as you do as a beginner, trying to copy my idols, produce that same way, blah, blah, blah.
Huh.
And the song came out, and a lot of Indian, okay, so I got to say this, like, I don't know, maybe Indians are just more fertile.
Yeah.
They're just more horny. I don't know what it is. But all the Indian men and women I showed it to, they were like, whoa, dude, that's an amazing song.
Huh.
And then in Singapore, we were like, it's so misogynistic.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm just singing about a chick I met.
Huh.
I sent it to her.
Yeah.
She likes it.
Yeah.
I like it. What's your problem?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, can't put this shit out there.
Oh, so that.
And then I had another song,
Uh-huh.
which was a way simpler song. Wrote it on all white keys because I didn't even know how to play the piano yet, so I didn't venture into the black keys yet. All white chords.
Yeah.
A love song. Wrote it for my wife. Very simple production, and it was my first fully self-produced song myself. And that song was on MTV India, MTV Asia, VH1 India, the video. And I was talking to a host in Singapore, Anita Kapoor, who was interviewing me. Because I was setting up a channel where we interview musicians and stuff. And I told her, like, I was just so shocked. Like, people dug this song so much more. And it went so much further. And then she was like, yeah, because you're doing it from the heart. Like, not trying to copy or just
What was the name of this?
sail away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try and find it
It's on my YouTube
on
channel. Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So I did 2 songs that are on YouTube.
Nice.
One was a copy of a mashup where we combined Guys Like You, but I converted it to girls. Sorry, yeah, I
Girls
made
Like
it
You.
Guys Like You. It's actually girl.
Yeah.
And that was Maroon 5. And then we took Rahman's song, Tere Bina Pesuadi. And so this was done by Jeffrey Iqbal, who's a UK based
Okay.
musician. And
Yeah.
I loved the entire mix and the production value. So I took it to a friend who runs a production company, music production. And I said,
Yeah.
if he can replicate this, I would like to do the voice.
Mm.
And as a friend, he said, okay, do it in your Sunday or whatever, your spare time. So I was working Monday to Friday. I went in and it didn't take very long to put it down. So that means I'm a decently recordable singer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
You're doing the pitches and all that.
yeah, I was able to get that going. And within a short time, we had a beautifully mixed replica. But only thing it was the lyrics were adapted to a woman, not to a man.
Right.
So that's on YouTube. It's called Guys Like You
Okay.
and Sangeeta Wadhwani. And the other track was something I wrote in my 20s when I met a rock band living nearby, where they were saying rock in India is dying. Okay, it has no future.
Yeah.
And but so he had all these pre-recorded pieces and scratches, and he made me hear them. And I started hearing a song over the scratch. So I put down the lyrics, but we forced ourselves to do it in Hindi because at that time the whole business was about Hindi. We
Right.
could not do English.
Right.
So we did it, and it was called Gio or Ginedo, and it had all the existential angst of a single woman thinking, why is marriage so repugnant to me? And why can't I find my soulmate? And why is Bombay so challenging to matters of the heart? And the same angst was in Shakti in the City, but I put it into that song. But recently I re recorded it as a ballad, not as a dance track, where the depth of the lyrics resonates far better.
Okay.
And I made it also about sustainability and
Okay.
existentialism versus consumerism.
Mhm.
Like finding the beauty of life and the joy of life, being in nature and saving the planet. So gave it a whole new fresh twist.
Yeah.
And I shot footage in the Maldives. I'd gone there for a break. I
Wow.
shot in the Himalayas at Devprayag. So that song has a very spiritual, very pandemic mood.
Right.
And yet it has a groove, it has tabla beats. I put layers and layers on it. So it's a very rich sounding track.
Yeah.
I shot at a beautiful stepwell also in Gujarat.
Right.
And it has a very Sufi feel. There's a lot of whirling that I'm doing.
Okay, I want to check it out now.
Yeah. Yeah. I was whirling, it just happened.
Yeah. And also one last thing I wanted to end with was one last thing I wanted to end with was I don't know, I mean I didn't tell you this yesterday when we met, but you know when I walked into the cafe where you were sitting there because I was like 5 minutes late, right? I noticed that you were a little stressed out on your phone.
Yeah.
And your pace and your energy was a little shrunk.
Uh-huh.
But like 1 hour into our conversation, I remember having a second thought going,
Yeah.
oh, look at her face now.
Yeah.
It's like lit up.
Yeah.
And reminded me of something you said, which was we live to our souls expand when we meet people.
Yeah.
Talking about the both
And
of
when
us.
they're giving.
So do you feel that's true for you?
It is very true because I find it
Yeah.
so hard to converse with a lot of men here.
Either.
Very sadly, that when you meet somebody who's well read, well exposed, traveled, and worked on different modalities and worked with people, it is an expansion. You've led a very expanded life.
Okay.
So that was a pleasant thing for me to encounter. That I
never
could
thought
actually
about it like
touch
that.
upon many things when I'm
Okay.
talking to you. So naturally, and you, even as a journalist, when I was talking to
Yeah,
people,
one is it. Yeah.
that learning was always feeling expansive. And I've
Expansive.
been missing that because now
Right.
it's not a full-time preoccupation. I've given it a good part of my life. Now I want to work with these modalities and be a wellness advocate.
Yeah.
So first it was a joy to meet someone like you, so well read, well
Thank you.
exposed,
Appreciate your
gifted,
compliment.
spiritual, yeah.
You should tell that to my wife.
Clean
You should tell that to my
It's
wife.
there for her to see.
Yeah. Because I like drive her
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
But,
No, she shouldn't take it for granted. Very few people are constantly on a quest to grow. So that is a precious thing to have.
Yeah.
You know?
But it drives everyone mad though.
So don't
sometimes-
engage with everybody. I live on my own. I do it like a hermit. I just keep trying new things.
Yeah.
And nobody has to hear about it unless they don't want to. But now, yes, this is a journey I'm taking pretty seriously
Yeah.
because it makes me happy. I've done a reading for you. I've been reading for friends.
Yeah.
And I just feel if I'm supporting other lives, that's what I was doing as a writer.
Right.
And if the writing industry has shifted a lot, then this is a very good way to take that connect into my future. Like
So
this people.
would you ever be combining your newfound sort of skills
Yeah.
with your whole life passion?
Yeah.
of
So I'm
uplifting the planet. Will you
I'm-
ever write about
Yes.
this stuff?
sure because see,
Okay.
I'm going to probably encounter many lives
Yeah.
again. I'm going to learn from those many lives. I'm going to, with their permission, see if there's something they'd like to share.
Right.
And I was contemplating a book called Bitches and Witches
Yeah.
because I was called a witch by this eccentric German lady in Pune who just felt my energy and she said, look, you don't look anywhere near what you say your age is. So you're 100% you're a witch. And she said,
Wow.
frankly, I have these arts that I want to pass on to a new generation.
Nice.
But because she was senile, she wasn't communicating. She didn't want to share her number. She was senile and she was a bit racist. So I had to
Oh.
let her go,
Okay.
because they don't want to be in touch with Indians. It's a very weird thing. A lot of foreigners, they forget the guru that they've come to meet as an Indian.
Yeah, that's what I was about
So
to
when they
say.
talk about Indians, it's in a very derogatory way. And I actually remember telling this woman, hey, but you're here for Osho, and Osho was Rajneesh, and Rajneesh is Indian. So just in case you're forgetting that, you're
Yeah.
in India for your Indian guru.
Yeah.
But there is still that covert
There is
racism.
that.
But
Yeah.
she did a blowtorch in my head because I said, okay, maybe I am a witch, but in a positive way. I'm not out here to destroy lives. I'm here to facilitate,
Right.
or shed light on people's lives and help to see them evolve,
Right.
help them to get direction.
Yeah.
So that's a very positive journey. So I'm super, super excited. I'm training with a UK coach. I'm training with an Indian coach in
Nice.
tarot.
So okay, so just to end off, how could anyone contact you if they want to engage you for services, write up about you, showcase your talents to the world?
Yeah, so very easy. My
Yeah.
my Instagram handle,
Okay.
SINDHY Crawford. It's one word, Cindy Crawford at Instagram.
Okay.
And you can DM me. I'm hopefully going to upload some content related to my new work.
Alright.
And you can also reach me on my Gmail ID, which is sangita.wadh@gmail.com
Cool.
with any queries that you have, or if you want a reading, just let me know and I will come back to you.
Cool. And we'll put those links in the description so you guys can check them out.
Yes.
And if you're hearing this on the podcast, then head over to the YouTube channel to get the links.
Yeah.
And yeah, so lovely to meet you, Sangeeta.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you. Yeah, wonderful
I
pleasure.
feel very lit.
It was so wonderful. I hope
Yeah.
all my episodes go this way. It's insane.
I'm so
Thanks so
happy we
much.
were able to converse and touch upon so many
Yeah.
things.
We have to do another one next year.
Yeah, there are many little trajectories to
Yeah,
follow
so
on.
many.
And I'll probably meet very interesting people
Yeah.
on this journey.
Yeah.
So India has its own parampara of witchcraft, and they have these archetypes also who are healers called Dayan, who looked after emperors when they were growing up.
Oh, that I've not heard of.
Yeah, so if you watch movies like Jodha Akbar, but a lot of, like you're saying, in the West also the crone, who's like sort of the mature woman who's guiding and guiding.
Yeah.
They became notorious for having powers that men could not handle. So they were also thrown in the shadow, and they were called Churel and Dayan and this and that. And there was a negative connotation to witchcraft, which I think is high time people got clarity on it. It's just understanding how the universal energies work. Anyone who's a Reiki channel has also got a superpower. So it's not just the witch who calls herself the witch, but if you're a Reiki channel, you have a superpower. So everybody can engage with natural forces. Everyone can educate themselves. Full moon, eclipse moon, this, that, grahan. It's just science, like any science. And it's how you apply that knowledge
Agreed.
that distinguishes whether you're the good witch or you're the dark witch. That's what's important. You have to work with ethics.
Great message. I can't top that. So let's end with that.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take care and see you on the next
And I
episode.
hope to hear from you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.